granniopteryx, granniopteryx. She knows the truth, she's linking every link.
Hello, I'm going to be reading out some of this article here, and I'm going to be making a comment at the end that you might wish to hear. All right, I'm Granniopteryx. Please like this video, please share it. Please subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell. And if you want to contribute financially, that's lovely. I do appreciate that. And all the links for doing so are in the description. Okay, let's talk about Mr. Patrick Lee's little fight over his criticism of Islam. So, Patrick Lee was found guilty of misconduct by the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries last April. So I'm assuming Mr. Lee is an actuary. He made some posts on X and they didn't like what he'd said, and they put him through a 4-year disciplinary process, and then they banned him from the professional body to which he belonged, that is the Institute of Actuaries, and they ordered him to pay, it says here, nearly £23,000 in costs. I don't know to whom. The trade body ruled that 42 of his posts that criticised Islam, including calling the Prophet Muhammad a monster, were either offensive or inflammatory, or both. Now, I just want to make my own point here. That fellow Muhammad is not my prophet. So I don't refer to him as the Prophet Muhammad. I will say Islam's Prophet Muhammad. That makes sense, and that's reasonable. If people who follow Islam want to think of Muhammad as their prophet, that's their business. But I don't. So the fact that the style sheet for the Telegraph says that he's referred to as the Prophet Muhammad. I mean, we don't talk about the Prophet Moses. We don't even talk about the Saviour Jesus, do we? Referring to him as the Prophet Muhammad, it's drilling into your brain the idea that he is the prophet, and the others, well, they're just names. So I would ask anyone watching this not to call Muhammad the Prophet Muhammad. The Muslim Prophet Muhammad, fine. The Prophet followed by Muslims, something like that, but not the Prophet. He is not the Prophet. Yeah, let's see. He called him a monster, and the Institute of Actuaries said that his comments were either offensive or inflammatory, or both. They couldn't make up their minds. And that 29 were designed to demean or insult Muslims. Yeah, you know, I have this thing about being insulted. It is, in a free society, it is not only my right to insult someone, it is my right to be insulted. That is part of being in a free society where you are in a situation where you can have your feelings hurt. And when you do, you either make a riposte of some sort, or you just get on with things. Following an employment tribunal, the actuary has won legal protection for his beliefs. You see, there are some decently intelligent judges sitting on the benches still. It is the first time a court has ruled that Islam-critical beliefs are protected under the Equality Act 2010. Previous claimants had been told such views were not worthy of respect in democracy, which, that's dismissive, isn't it? I seem to remember one particular judge saying that, but I don't remember who it was. The decision follows a 2021 ruling that Maya Forstadter's gender-critical beliefs were protected under the same law. So I want you to hold that thought, because the judge obviously used the judgment handed to Maya Forstadter. And I want you to remember that because I'm going to get back to it. Anyway, Mr. Lee told the Sunday Telegraph, "I hope that it will embolden other people to speak up and it will stop employers and regulators from gagging people when they're making valid criticism of Islam." On Saturday night, Lord Young of Acton, that's the head of the Free Speech Union, said the decision was an important victory, and so it is. But again, hold that thought. Mr. Lee, an atheist who's long criticised abuse carried out in the name of religion, that's religion generally, argued that his view that Islam, particularly in a traditional form, rather than a reformed, modernised, moderate and westernised form, is problematic and deserving of criticism. This was qualified as a protected philosophical belief under the Equality Act. Employment Tribunal Judge David Khan agreed. In a written judgment handed down on Monday, he found Mr. Lee a reliable witness because he gave cogent, consistent and credible evidence and accepted that he is, and was at all relevant times, critical of certain Islamic doctrines and practices and not to individual followers of Islam or the Islamic faith. And yeah, that's exactly what was going on. And of course, the more nutty end of Muslims are constantly trying to conflate criticism of Islam with belligerency towards Muslims. And we must, of course, always resist that tendency that they have. The judge also accepted Mr. Lee believed these doctrines and their interpretation require urgent reform. I honestly don't see how that's going to be done, but yeah, there you are. John Holbrook, Mr. Lee's barrister, said, "Islam critical was a reasonable and non-pejorative description of his client's belief." So, yeah, you could say I'm Islam critical. Yeah, that's fine. So the ruling has been delivered amid wider debate about religious sensitivity and the limits of free expression. You will remember that the Labour Party is trying to bring in an Islamophobia law, and the definition was so broad that they really did have to withdraw it. And now they're really stymied by the Islam critical coinage, which should be used more and more. Right, so this is one of the tweets or Twixes that Patrick Lee put out. "I would agree that the Islamic Republic is as dangerous as a virus and more evil. The virus is not sentient, but isn't Islam the real cause? Is a religion whose founder, according to its own sacred texts, ordered people to be tortured to death, not evil?" He was responding to Masih Alinejad, an Iranian activist who had called Tehran's regime a bigger virus than COVID. To support his claim, his tweet included a hadith passage apparently describing the Prophet, ordering the mutilation and blinding of thieves left to die in the sun. Of course, this is a hadith. And there are many Muslims who have repudiated the hadith. So we have to be a bit careful. I often get confused about what was Quranic, which was bad enough, by the way. But, you know, there's a whole load more in the hadiths, and sometimes you get confused about which is which. Judge Khan ruled that Mr. Lee's belief qualified for protection, with a final 7-day hearing in February to decide whether his tweets were an appropriate manifestation of that belief. The view that Islam is problematic and should be criticised. Okay, and you know, it's amazing, but some sense is coming through. It's marvellous. It was said that you can't separate the views about religion from his views about the followers. That was how, again, this is what I said, the attempt to conflate the two. Luckily, the High Court judge who heard his appeal last month disagreed. Burning a Koran may be an act that many Muslims find desperately upsetting and offensive, Mr. Justice Benathan said in another landmark judgment. The criminal law, however, is not a mechanism that seeks to avoid people being upset, even grievously upset. The right to freedom of expression, if it is a right worth having, must include the right to express views that offend, shock, or disturb. And that's wonderful to hear. And also, he might say that the right to freedom of expression also includes your right to be shocked and disturbed, because unless you have that right, you can't live freely. So this is what Lord Young said. Treating everyone with respect is something few people would disagree with, including me. That's Lord Young. But that is not the same as respecting their beliefs, and the sooner we grasp that distinction, the better. Well, I'm very pleased to see that it is being grasped, and I am very glad about that ruling. However, I do have to make a point that we should all bear in mind. The fact that British law says that we have a right to our belief that Islam is not a very good religion. In fact, it's a bloody awful religion and has led many civilizations into complete dead ends. That's what I'm saying. And British law now says that I can say that without fear of some knock on the door at 7 a.m. It doesn't protect me from somebody who follows Islam, takes offence, and then follows the rule that any man can take the law into his own hands if he feels that Islam has been disrespected. So the law may protect me, or may protect my beliefs, but it does not protect me from a Muslim fanatic. And that's something the law has to take into consideration. I am not suggesting that the law should be changed. I am suggesting that the law should take fanatical Islam more seriously than it is doing at present. All right, until next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.